Learning French at 60, that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Hello, my name's Chris, I'm a French teacher at OuiCommunicate, and even if you're not in that age group, I think this video might still be useful to you. And before I go any further, please do subscribe and follow this channel. So let's start. Learning French at 60. My first piece of advice for anyone who wants to learn French at 60 is to understand what they don't know, what they don't understand. Let a good teacher explain to you the road ahead. You might already be in a situation of worry due to your age and unsure if you still have it, which is understandable. But by jumping into it head first, it's likely that you'll encounter disappointments and frustration. There are usually two parts to the puzzle when we learn a language: what it means to learn and what we mean by a language, what constitutes a language. The right combination of the two should bring you to be able to communicate in French. Think of it as a sport, if it's been a while. To one who doesn't know basketball, the simple definition is that they might summarize it as the skill by which we throw a little ball into a hoop. But a pro player will know the many important skills that it requires. Their definition of basketball won't be the same, and they'll also be able to rank them in order of importance. A good language teacher can do the same. They can rank the skills that pertain to language learning by order of importance. If you approach French as an undefined ocean of words, and it happens very often, we see French, it's just a vast collection of words. You'll do the equivalent of running up and down the court, the basketball court, trying your best at throwing the ball into the hoop. You won't get good at it, and you might blame it on exterior factors such as your age. Whether you're 60 or much younger, the difficulty remains the same. Speaking French has more to do with understanding the trick behind the magic. To make your learning easier, a teacher should point out the priorities within the French language, and not knowing these causes the learner to see French as an unstructured whole, like a sea of words, and I mean W-H-O-L-E, a whole. Languages are systems. Right? We can compare them to a tree in which the thin branches represent the rare skills, the marginal skills, and the trunk represents the absolute necessities. As simple as it sounds, the average learner of French can quickly fall victim to clutter. I call it clutter, and I see it everywhere. Some teachers will encourage you, for example, to talk about your hobbies, or they'll encourage you to do simulations, such as asking someone for a direction. It often happens that several months down the line, your French doesn't sound any closer to the genuine article. And if you think that big name schools are exempt from this, well, sadly it's not true. They're often as disorganized as the isolated part-time tutors who do it as a side gig. 60-year-old, the age, is not the true obstacle to learning French. And it's rather a lack of clarity, a lack of understanding of what you're doing in the present moment and what it's all leading to. It's really a lack of perspective more than the age. Whether we're younger or older, we must understand that learning French is a mental game. I can't say that enough. Before even learning the first word, there are battles to be won to regain a sense of inner balance. Making that decision to learn French causes disbalance because it's new. It's an opposition to the peace of mind we all desire. These battles include overcoming a limiting self-image, correcting a distorted view of what French really is, raising the bar on our abilities, understanding the nature of language learning, and most importantly, battling the natural ability to postpone and choosing the easy route. Now let's be clear. Your person doesn't really want to learn French. At least subconsciously it doesn't. There are habits and behaviors that echo through our person, and a new one is never welcome, especially if it requires effort. It's a stress on the system. We're very alert to easy solutions and promises of shortcuts. Our brain is also a type of expert trader that always weighs within a split second the benefit of a certain proposition. When you do the shopping, for example, in a supermarket, you quickly picture the benefit of buying a certain item. It's really very quick. It might be comfort, the promise of comfort, happiness, or health. It happens very, very quickly. There's always a trade-off in everything we do that motivates our actions. We always calculate if this, then that, right? That's how we're wired. That's what we do naturally. The issue with this trade-off, this natural trade-off that we do, is that you might come to the wrong conclusion, especially since language teaching, language learning is a field you might not know very well. You might say, for example, well, if I learn at Alliance Française, I'm sure to get the very best, which might provide you with a sense of inner comfort. That's the trade-off. Now, if you are extremely energetic, and I mean extremely energetic, you might even compare 5 or 6 different sources of learning, language schools, language apps, and we could actually symbolize them by little houses. We could symbolize them by little houses. It's an image I quite like, in front of the beautiful waterfall, and the beautiful waterfall is of course the language that attracted you in the first place. That's where you want to get. It's the beautiful waterfall, but there are little houses in front of the waterfall, right? Each little house decorated in its own unique way. Now, before you know it, you're making subjective decisions based on variables that have nothing to do with your original intention, which was getting to the waterfall. And this is called marketing, right? Your desire for French has now taken second place. You're choosing something that you didn't initially want, to put it simply. Because there's now a sense of trust, and your mind is at rest, finally, because that's what we want to be at rest. Now, whether French materializes or not after making this choice is less of a concern. Your mind is happily engaging in the activity of learning French, whatever that means. And you can go on without the worry of having to rethink whether you've made the right choice or not. And this is the reason learners are happy to engage in months of Duolingo, a trade-off for peace of mind, and a deep-rooted desire to not have to go back to the dreaded drawing board and research this decision properly this time. The probable reason you might think age is a concern when learning French is the association you might be making between language and memory. You might believe that there are quantities of words to memorize, but by viewing language rather as systems that require discernment and curiosity, we can now change this narrative. Our human brain, has been known to prioritize information according to need and emotional engagement. Obviously, we don't remember the padlock combination from 30 years ago simply because we don't need it anymore. And we don't spend time memorizing random information because it's not very fun. At any age, the learner of French will have to create an emotional attachment with French, a sense of curiosity and a rational celebration of their little victories. I think that's very important in language learning. You might say, isn't it amazing? Yesterday I couldn't do this and now I can. I have progressed, but you need to celebrate this. You need to look at it and you need to celebrate it. It's very important. You must see yourself move forward in your learning. Rejoice at this and be curious about what's next. Some famous language apps, which we shall not name, have understood this perfectly and proposed this to the letter by celebrating at each moment your little victories, pa-pa-pa-pa-pa-pa. Now, the only issue between us being that their learning program is very badly designed, but they've understood that part at least, among many others, which I'll be talking about one day in one of my videos. I've met learners of 17 who were incapable of formulating a rational thought, and I've met learners of 70 who were pushing the boundaries. Naturally, it's much easier to point towards more examples of 70-somethings in their armchair with a remote control in their hands, barely conscious. The reason we don't see older people act like this in traditional societies, picture a village in the middle of the jungle, is that their elders are not taught to rest after a certain age and essentially do nothing. They don't go from busy to absolutely nothing as we do in our societies. Now, they might not perform the harder physical tasks anymore, understandably, but they still stay engaged and contribute to the village life. If it's been a while since you learnt a language or did anything similar, I think the higher risk is in a misinterpretation of your results when you encounter that first obstacle. You might conclude that you no longer have the ability to learn, when in actual fact you're discovering what it means to learn. You're still at the stage of battling your preconceptions while believing that you're already at the stage of learning. If it doesn't work quick enough, you might conclude, well, I tried learning French and it doesn't work, I can't do it anymore. And to use an easy image, you think you're driving the car where you're still at the stage of working out how the pedals work. It's an easy image, but it's true. You're not yet in the house, you're standing in front of the front door and you might be drawing the wrong conclusions. To conclude on all of this, I think for reasons of culture, for reasons of the society we live in, we've been brought to underestimate our own abilities. There's a mirroring effect with our peers, with our neighbours, and we think, well, what makes me believe I can do that when other people can't? I think that the level of expectation, to me at least, seems to have shrunk over the years, to the point where you see social media celebrating acts of kindness that require no more than picking up someone's wallet and saying, hey, you lost this. That's where the level is. That's what we're expecting. That's what we're celebrating these days. And the same goes with physical and mental abilities. The bar, I think, is very low, and I'm not jaded. I'm not cynical, but I really do think the bar is very low. The effects of everything on demand are also felt, because this is the world we live in, for better or for worse. Everything is on demand. And I think the time span we consider to be acceptable between the decision and the result has shrunk like never before in history. And worse still, the very notion of decision has almost eroded. We don't compare and weigh the alternatives anymore. We see a film and we click on it. We see a product and we buy it. And it's closer to animalistic triggers than true decisions, impulses, you might say. As a result, an activity such as language learning sticks out more and more due to its uncommon character, its uncommon time frame. And of course it leaves the door wide open for clever marketers, to bring language learning to the same standards as everything else we buy, quick and easy. And if you think of it as a horizon, everything's now been standardized to the same time frame between your impulse and the moment you buy, except something like language learning, which is a lot slower, obviously. It sticks out. It's disagreeable. We almost perceive it as abnormal. It may be too early to measure the impact of what I'm about to mention next, but I think that for the first time in history, perhaps, humans are engaging in one-sided communication by means of social media. Hitherto, up until now, whether the activity was writing a book, conversing, making a film, writing an article for a newspaper, or writing a song, there was a certain exchange of ideas. It didn't go one way only. The process of which, of course, took time. It took time to build communication. Nowadays, we can throw out "that sucks" beneath any video we want without even watching the video. And the purpose of the message isn't even thought of. We're just throwing out "that sucks." It's more like releases of emotions than releases of ideas. As we can see, age starts to look like a minor factor when we put it up against all the other forces surrounding language learning. A certain preconception of what it means, a self-image, the act of learning in itself, the definition of a language, the understanding of where we're located within the learning process, decisions based on marketing tactics, the subconscious desire to avoid effort, and recent internet-based behaviours which make the process more complicated still. To conclude, 60 or not, if you have a brain, it means you can use it. Languages are systems that require to be understood. French is a system also. Yes, you can do it. My name is Chris. Thank you very much for watching.